Yes, well, right now we have many of the, gay pride just wrapped up, and this is not anti-gay pride, and it's not anti-LGBTQ, or however people want to identify, but the fact remains that there is a section of it that is detrimental to kids. It's sexualizing kids. It's also, it's from a Marxist philosophy.
Poof! That might just be the sound of parental rights flying off in the wind in Canada. After all, your child could watch a movie at school and come home with a completely different identity all of a sudden, or maybe they're scheduled to have body parts removed next week without your consent or on cross-sex hormones that could cause sterility. And God forbid you speak out about that too much, because if you do, you might land yourself behind bars. True story. Or maybe you're not going to end up in prison like that dad we've reported on at Rebel News. Maybe instead it's just the drag queen leaving the nightclub to cross the street to the public library to read your child and other children books on tolerance?
My name is Blackberry. I'm a bearded drag queen. That means I'm a lady with lots of facial hair. Do you want to touch my hair? No.
And you've got an issue with that, and that makes you a bigot. Or does it? Today I sit down and interview a activist from New Brunswick. His name is Nicholas Pereira, and he has been standing up for parental rights and also speaking out against introducing sexual topics too soon to children. He's actually a men's coach who actually coaches men on sexual health, but just knows that there is a time and a place where that's appropriate. And for speaking out in this fashion, he's found himself with run-ins from the legacy media and even the Minister of Education, which you'll see a clip of in this report. Now, if you appreciate that at Rebel News, we bring you important reports just like this. I've seen my emails. I know these are concerns for parents, not because they're bigots, but just simply because they want their children to be children. Then you can help support our journalism. We get our boots on the ground to bring you up close in-person interviews just like this one here. And you can donate to keep our journalism going strong at rebelfieldreports.com. Here's Mr. Nicholas Pereira. All right, Drea Humphrey in St. John's, New Brunswick. We just got out of doing an interview that you'll see at rebelnews.com about Pastor Phil, who many of you have gotten behind to help save him from the legal troubles. He was thrown in jail. It's a crazy story. Go to savepastorphil.com to find out more about that. But on the way out, I'm just about to catch a plane to get back home. And I ran into you, and you've been part of the freedom movement out here, and you ran with the PPC in the last election, and you have been really advocating for parental rights. That's in right. 2 different fields, and got backlash for that. So let's start with the most recent thing. What were you trying to stand for when it comes for maybe protection for children, and how is it perceived?
Yes, well, right now we have many of the, gay pride just wrapped up, and this is not anti-gay pride, and it's not anti-LGBTQ, or however people want to identify, but the fact remains that there is a section of it that is detrimental to kids. It's sexualizing kids. It's also, it's from a Marxist philosophy. So if you understand Marxism, they believe that everything is owned by the state, including your children. And this LGBTQ story time, while it seems very innocent and all about inclusion, it actually has a darker side where they are twisting and confusing kids about their own sexuality and identity, and that's going to create tremendous psychological damage as time goes on. And it is a military tactic. It is well known in military circles that these types of tactics have been used in the past. World War II, one of the ways that they weakened the armies was by dropping pornography onto the soldiers. Wow. So this is all wrapped up. It is a lot darker than people imagine. And I'm standing up trying to educate people on the relationship between our sexual energy, our identity, and how that impacts us as strength, especially as men. There's a huge attack on masculinity right now.
Well, yes, I see that happening too. Now, are you talking specifically about the drag queen story times, or are you talking about story times where they're reading books that are focused on Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, what we're focused on, it's not that the story times itself, but again, many of these drag queens, not all of them, but some of them, they have OnlyFans pages. They are posing and selling their nude photos as well. They are highly sexual. They're dressed like strippers. They're exposed themselves. If I was to do the same thing, I would be arrested for indecent exposure. But because it's got this gay pride tag to it, it seems like it's okay. Again, and let adult things be for adults and leave the kids alone, because kids are so innocent. They sponge up everything, and this has deep psychological damage when we mess around with people's sexuality at such a young age.
Well, for those of you who aren't sure, there are a lot of drag queens who agree with you as well. My colleague Alexa Laveau has interviewed one. We'll play a clip of that right now.
I don't know how you, as a performer and as an adult, feel comfortable doing your nightclub act in front of children and getting money shoved down your underwear. And yes, I get it. Your butt is fake, it's foam, and you are wearing 10 pairs of nylons, and the child doesn't know that. They just see a woman there with her legs spread open. And it's horrifying. You know it is. And I mean, you're not really making that much money, but you give the impression that you're enjoying it, and you make the gay community or LGBTQ community look bad.
So tell us what happened after you took this stand. How was that perceived by your community or whoever? What happened? Was there a fallout?
Well, yes. So there was thousands of comments on the post, and that lasted a few days. The CBC came around, and of course we know that they're total left-wing and biased, and they picked up the story and started fueling fire, trying to link me with the hate that the libraries were receiving, basically saying that this post started this backlash. And you know what? It did start a backlash, and that's a positive thing, because parents need to know what's going on. While there was so much hate, I also received tons of support. Parents saying, "Thank you so much. I had no idea this was going on. I had no idea this was going on in our city." And as we know, we were just speaking about, they're hosting dances and they're hosting things for kids and saying, for the kids' protections, parents are not allowed. That is absolutely insane. It is once again where unfortunately, our democracy is gone. So now it's a state, right? And the state is trying to come in between parents and the children, because what a Marxist, someone who buys into Marxist philosophy, which is Justin Trudeau and Blaine Higgs here in New Brunswick and Education Minister Dominic Carty, they believe that the state should run everything and make the decisions, and that includes the decisions for your kids, and that is absolutely wrong. That's human rights violation.
And now we're going to show you, or we're going to talk about it real briefly, some proof to sort of support your words. You sort of had a run-in, whatever you want to call it, you can describe it, with the Minister of Education out here in New Brunswick.
They're not the state's children!
New Brunswick Education Minister Dominic Carty loudly confronted by a group of People's Party supporters, including leader Maxime Bernier and St. John Rothsay candidate Nicholas Pereira.
Parental rights here. You are a human rights violator.
Saturday, that confrontation more subtle in nature, with supporters leaving this flag behind at Carty's office. This, the day after Carty went public with claims these guys who oppose his stance on COVID-19 vaccination and in-school regulation vandalized his office, leaving a similar calling card.
Throwing bricks at the door of the constituency office and then leaving a Bernier flag behind just to make it very clear who done it.
The bricks marked with "Leave our kids alone," leaving scuff marks on the glass. Carty says they called police.
Their decision on how they want to behave, but in a democracy at some point we've got to stand up and say that any use of violence is unacceptable and have to be consequences for that.
In his own Facebook post Friday, Pereira insinuating Carty's claims are made up, questioning why it took 3 weeks for the event to come to light. Supporters in the comments suggesting police may never have been called. But RCMP confirmed to Global News they did get a complaint and are investigating.
What did he say to you?
Well, he said to one of the parents, this was in the last campaign, that the state owns your children. That's what he said to one of the parents that were with us. And of course, that really triggered me.
How can you say it's all right to vaccinate our children? It's our children, not yours. Doesn't matter.
You don't even have children. They are not the state's children.
I got involved with this because my passion isn't politics, actually, it's philosophy. And so I know Marxism when I see it. And as soon as he said that, it really triggered me. So I got in his face and I told him exactly what I thought. He's a human rights violator. He's trying to force vaccinations on children. And now they're pushing all of this Marxist philosophy inside of our schools. And it's going to make us weak as a nation, and it's detrimental.
Now, you told me a little bit about how the CBC picked up that story and how you felt about whether it was fair or not. Let us know about that.
Well, all the legacy media, right? They picked it up right away, and they used it to demonize, saying that, oh, we attacked Dominic Carty and we attacked the education minister. Actually, what was happening, myself and Maxime Bernier, the leader of the PPC, had just finished doing a podcast interview. We had exited the building, and some of our supporters were there to meet us and to say hello to Maxime. That was completely for the PPC, had nothing to do with anyone else. Dominic Carty came then walking down the street towards us, and he could have walked on by and just went on his merry way, but he turned around. He puts on his mask and he says, well, I know.
Gotta have the mask for the cameras.
That's right. He puts on his mask and he says, well, I know none of you are vaccinated. And then he goes on to call me a lunatic and the parents a lunatic and to insult us. The CBC, CTV, not one legacy media gave me a call to ask me my side of the story. His quotes were there, his side of the story was there, and not one call did I get to say, well, what happened in your perspective? And that's how we know that the media is biased and have been bought out, because they're no longer reporting both sides of the story and allowing people to make a decision. They're now purposefully trying to cut out anyone that goes against their narrative.
Journalism 101 is you got to reach out to both sides of the story, and that's exactly, of course, what I will do and always do in my reports when something's said. So I will update you on that at the end of this video. But I just want to ask you, what is the last words you have for parents? Whether they think, hey, no, these things are for tolerance, or they agree with you. What's your message for them?
Parents, get involved with your school system. Right now, they're trying to reform school systems where there's less parental involvement. And Dominic Carty is using the rhetoric of, we're doing this for democracy. That is nonsense. The less you are involved, the more the state is going to push radical ideologies onto your children, the more they're going to try to separate your children from you. The best defense is offense. Get involved. And if you have to, pull your kids out of school. Homeschool. There's tons of great projects going on teaching you how to homeschool and bring back community learning. The more we, the populace, just get involved and take back that power, the less that they can influence your children and raise them to be slaves for the state.
There you have it. Do you think you or the state parents your child? Let us know in the comments. I'm Drea Humphrey for Rebel News.
Thank you so much.
Rebel News reached out to Dominic Carty for his side of the story to this interview and has yet to hear back. If we do in a timely fashion, we will link it in the written report for this article, which you can find in the description box below. Comment below. Let me know what you thought about what you saw here. Are parental rights under attack, and are children being groomed under the name of tolerance? I'm Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. Hey, if you want to know another fun way you can support Rebel News, you can actually do it by shopping for yourself and your loved ones. If you head to our store, rebelnewsstore.com, you can check out cool gear there, including ones like this one, the definition of a woman. So you can check that out at rebelnewsstore.com. You can even save right now if you use coupon code Canada25, and everything you purchase there goes to help our journalism go strong. We appreciate your support.